On September 30, 2023, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, a horrific car crash shocked Washington state. At 4:30 a.m. police found a white Porsche 911 overturned at the intersection of 108th Avenue and State Route 520. The accident left a 27-year-old male passenger dead and a 26-year-old female driver critically injured. Both were young professionals with promising careers. The twist: before the local court could issue an arrest warrant, the injured driver vanished, allegedly fleeing back to China. Rumors of deceit and a well-planned escape have since swirled, turning a tragic accident into a gripping mystery. Join us in unraveling the story behind this case. Hello, and welcome to the Crime Documentary Files channel. On the road, there are long skid marks, and the thick cement barriers on the roadside have been forcefully broken. Following the marks, in the distance on the greenbelt, a white Porsche 911 is flipped over, its body severely deformed, the roof flattened, and white smoke coming from underneath, indicating a potential explosion. Rescuers found a female driver and a male passenger inside the car. The male passenger was pronounced dead at the scene, while the injured female driver was rushed to the hospital. Authorities have stated that alcohol played a significant role in this tragic incident, with preliminary evidence suggesting impaired judgment on the driver's part as a critical factor in the fatal accident. The two people involved in the accident are both Chinese nationals. They were not only in their prime of youth but also had very promising career prospects. The deceased, a 27-year-old male, was an engineer at TikTok, while the 26-year-old female driver was a programmer at Apple. Both drunk driving and speeding led to one losing their life on the spot and the other's future left uncertain. This was not a complex or bizarre criminal case, as the police have determined, and the young driver will pay a heavy price for her mistake. This tragic event serves as a heartbreaking reminder for everyone to drive carefully, avoid speeding, and never drink and drive. However, the story did not end there. Before the local court issued an arrest warrant, the injured female driver mysteriously disappeared. Subsequently, many Chinese individuals revealed on social media that the culpable female driver, fearing imprisonment, had swiftly fled back to China. Not only that, a person claiming to be a friend of the deceased disclosed that, after the incident, the female driver went to great lengths to conceal her boyfriend's death, lying to those who knew them, falsely claiming that her boyfriend was fine, while exchanging a large amount of currency in WeChat groups to prepare for fleeing the country. Even more shocking was her refusal to reveal any information about the deceased to the authorities, leading the police to confirm the identity of the deceased through other channels, causing the parents of the deceased to only find out about their son's death later. The content of these revelations has made this car accident the recent hot topic of discussion in the North American Chinese community, sparking significant attention and condemnation. Apart from the severe consequences of the accident itself and the female driver allegedly fleeing the scene, this female driver is said to be an online influencer, young, beautiful, with a good job, and known for flaunting her wealth on social media. These factors have all contributed to the massive attention drawn to the accident. Based on the information we currently have, we will go through the causes and development of the accident. The footage of the accident in this video comes from American media, court documents, and police recordings, while all other information was sourced from the internet. Fan tips, analysis, and comments were only based on the information currently available. If anyone has more reliable information, feel free to fill us in via the comment section. Using the Accident Responsibility Identification document signed by the police on October 5th, let's reconstruct the process of the accident. First, on the morning of September 30th, which was a Saturday, around 3:44 a.m., a tragic accident occurred as the culprit vehicle was heading from Bellevue downtown in the state of Washington towards State Route 520. Yetting, aged 26, was driving a white 2020 Porsche 911 with the passenger, later identified as 27-year-old Liu Yuba, roaring at over 90 miles per hour, which is close to 145 kilometers per hour. They were speeding on 108th Avenue, lost control at the intersection merging onto State Route 520, crashed into a concrete barrier at high speed, charged into the air, flipped multiple times, flew over a reservoir, hit the side of a bridge, and ended up upside down in a planter next to State Route 520. Upon arriving at the scene, the police officers and firefighters realized the extensive damage to the vehicle. They found that the driver's side door was the only exit that could rescue the two people inside. They first rescued the driver, Yetting, then they cut through Liu Yuba's seatbelt inside the car and dragged him out from the passenger seat with great difficulty. Medical personnel confirmed that Liu Yuba had unfortunately passed away at the scene. While attending to Yetting's injuries, a firefighter named Andrew detected a strong smell of alcohol on her breath, a fact later confirmed by paramedic SA. Subsequently, Yetting was transported to the Harborview Medical Center in an ambulance. The police promptly applied for a search warrant to obtain Yetting's blood alcohol content report. Bellevue traffic cameras also captured the moment when Yetting's car was involved in the accident, as well as the driving conditions of the vehicle at the intersection of 112th Avenue and 24th Street before entering the accident section. The officer from the Washington Police Department wrote, based on the video footage, that at 112th Avenue and 24th Street, Yetting's car was already traveling at 92 miles per hour. At 108th Avenue, the speed increased to 94 miles per hour. After losing control, the car swerved sideways, with the driver's side heading forwards. The car hit the concrete barrier at a speed of at least 91 miles per hour, equivalent to 146 kilometers per hour, leaving clear skid marks at the scene. These marks were initially on the southbound lane, even though Yetting was driving north at the time. The officer on that side also indicated that the road was dry at the time of the incident, and Yetting's car did not collide with any object before hitting the barrier, so weather factors or road conditions influencing the accident were basically ruled out. We also checked that on 112th Avenue or 108th Avenue, the speed limits are both 30 miles per hour, which is 48 kilometers per hour. This means that at the time of the accident, Yetting's speed was more than 3 times the local speed limit. Into a wall at such a high speed, and the driver survived, it can only be described as quite lucky. Some netizens also discussed the safety functionality of Porsches, but that is not related to our topic today. The conclusion reached in this accident report is that there was sufficient evidence to suggest that Yetting was suspected of violating Chapter 42, Section 61.5-4 of the Washington State Revised Code, the offense of vehicular homicide. According to this statute, vehicular homicide is divided into 3 scenarios. Firstly, unintentional actions resulting in someone's death. This means when a person, while driving a motor vehicle, causes the death of another person due to negligence in violating traffic rules or other laws. Secondly, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs resulting in someone's death. Thirdly, reckless driving or disregarding the safety of others. Having reviewed the 3 scenarios above, it seems that any one of them could be used to describe the behavior of Yetting. According to the police accident report, the prosecutor's office in Seattle has applied for the arrest of Yetting in the Washington State Superior Court for vehicular homicide. The prosecutor outlined several points in the case summary, stating that, due to the defendant's injuries, the police were unable to question her at the scene. However, 3 hours after the accident, a search warrant was approved for the defendant's blood alcohol content test. The forensic scientist has obtained the results related to the blood sample and is awaiting testing by an independent office. Second, Mr. Liu was seriously injured and pronounced dead at the scene. His body was taken to the King County Medical Examiner's office. The defendant refused to provide any information about Mr. Liu to the authorities. Investigators had to inform his immediate family about his death through his workplace in Seattle. Third, the defendant obtained a driver's license on February 12, 2021, with no prior history of traffic or criminal offenses before this incident. The car she was driving was a 2020 Porsche 911, valued between $97,000 and $133,000. Fourth, both the defendant and Mr. Liu are Chinese nationals living in Seattle. It is unclear how long the defendant intended to stay in Seattle for work. She resided in a single-bedroom apartment. Washington State does not have an extradition treaty with China, and the defendant had no connections to the local community. Given the above points, the prosecutor requested that the bail amount for Yetting be set at $2 million, along with several conditions, including surrendering her passport, not driving, and not leaving the state of Washington without court permission. If the defendant is unable to pay the bail, home confinement is required, with the wearing of an electronic ankle monitor and alcohol level monitoring. The prosecution's request was approved by the Superior Court on October 9th, where the judge issued an arrest warrant and set the bail amount at $2 million, with detention if bail is not paid pending trial. When Washington, D.C. police arrived at the hospital where Yetting was, they found out that she had already been discharged, and her whereabouts were unknown shortly after. Rumors started circulating on social media that a female programmer from Seattle was responsible for her boyfriend's death in a drunk driving accident and had quietly fled back to her home country, sparking much attention. It turns out that Yetting was a small influencer and had built a following of thousands of followers on various social platforms due to her attractive appearance, prestigious educational background, being a postgraduate student, and her job as a data engineer at Apple. This act of fleeing after the incident created a stark contrast with her online image and professional identity. Some other self-proclaimed friends of Liu have come forward one after another, claiming that Yetting was extremely selfish. Not only did she refuse to disclose the identity of the young man to the police, but she also kept the news of his passing from the young man's family and friends, causing the parents and friends of the victimized boyfriend to learn of the bad news 2 weeks later. What's even more unsettling to netizens was that someone discovered that, after the incident, she was still updating her social media accounts, sipping afternoon tea at home and enjoying life, creating an illusion of tranquility, all while secretly preparing to exchange US dollars for Chinese RMB in WeChat group chats to return to China. After successfully escaping, she then deleted all her social media pages in an attempt to evade responsibility by disappearing. These series of actions have fueled public outrage to its peak. However, at this moment, on the YouTube platform, a large number of users of Indian descent suddenly appeared, claiming that Yetting's rescue efforts in the hospital were unsuccessful and that she became the second fatality in this accident. With twists and turns of plot with 9 bends and 18 turns, everyone was left at a loss, not knowing who was telling the truth and who was lying. Has Yetting truly fled back to her country, or has she passed away in the hospital at this point in the story? Let's untangle the timeline. First, the car accident was reported to have happened on September 30th, and the arrest warrant was issued on October 9th. If it is true that Yetting managed to escape, then it means that within just 8 days after the accident, she was able to book a flight with her injuries, arrange everything, and endure a flight of over 10 hours back to her country. Is it really possible? In fact, the arrest warrant for Yetting was only entered into the system on October 9th. Therefore, from a technical point of view, she could have left the United States without being stopped at the border. But, considering her physical condition, would her injuries allow her to leave the U.S.? Especially after watching the video of Yetting being questioned by Detective Negrin in the hospital on October 2nd, it's hard for people to believe that she really managed to escape back to her home country, because, no matter how you look at her condition in the video, it didn't seem like she was in a state to get up and run away. On that day, Detective Negrin and his colleagues arrived at Harborview Medical Center, where Yetting was located, for the first round of questioning. Following the police recording, we can deduce more information about the case. Seeing Yetting in the emergency ward, out of respect for the individual's privacy, we have made some edits to the video. Nevertheless, you can see that she was quite injured. Her right arm is heavily bandaged from the armpit to the wrist. She was wearing a neck brace and had a breathing tube in her nose. With her voice being weak and patchy, the only thing that can be confirmed is that she seemed conscious enough. Here is the conversation between Yetting and the detective. The detective first identified himself and stated the purpose of his visit. At this point, she requested a male friend to come to her bedside to offer support. The man who was originally beside Yetting moved out of the camera's view after the arrival of the police. At Yetting's request, the police agreed to let this male friend of Yetting's remain by the hospital bed. The exact nature of their relationship is not the focus of this discussion, but it is evident that Yetting was very nervous about the upcoming questioning by the police inspector. Detective Negrin then explained that this video footage was TPM and read out the Miranda warning to Yetting according to procedures. So today is October 2nd, 2023, and it's about 2:02 p.m. This is Detective Negrin with the City of Beat Police Department. This interview is regarding case number 2023-53397. I am interviewing Tingley, T, Can you spell your name for me, please? My name is. Are you able to spell that for me? Rtingy, she replied. When Detective Negrin informed Yiding of her rights and asked if she voluntarily wanted to answer some questions, she said, "Regarding today's visit, can I have a lawyer answer the questions on my behalf?" The subsequent conversation mainly revolved around how to engage a lawyer. The police informed Yiding that she could either find a lawyer online to represent her or request a public defender to defend her. The inquiry ended around 10 in the afternoon that day, and the police were unable to ask her any questions related to the accident from start to finish because, after Yiding finished listening to Miranda's warning from the police, she requested to have a lawyer answer all the questions on her behalf. Seeing this, we can clearly see that Yiding was very clear-headed at the time, but the injuries did not seem like she would be discharged in a short period of time. So, it is still a question whether she has fled back to the country, because all along we have only seen the online disclosure from Chinese and Indian netizens but have never received an official announcement from the police. On October 27th, all the questions were finally answered. BLLW police confirmed that Yiding had escaped back to China, and they have initiated an international search. The public information officer in Washington state clarified some details in an interview with a local TV station. Firstly, the car accident occurred around 3:45 in the morning, and it took 45 minutes for passersby to report the accident. Secondly, based on the police's calculation of the skid marks at the scene, the vehicle was traveling at a speed of over 100 miles per hour before the accident, which is over 160 kilometers per hour. Most importantly, someone drove Yiding from the scene, Seattle to Vancouver, Canada, and then Yiding took a flight back to China from Vancouver. As for the identity of this person, the police are still investigating, but it is certain that whoever it is will face serious legal consequences. Previously, someone questioned the reason for the late warrant issued by the police. Why was there no one guarding the hospital, and how could a patient with injuries manage to escape? Seth, the public information officer, also answered these questions one by one during the interview. Firstly, issuing an arrest warrant requires a certain process, and it's not solely up to the police. As mentioned earlier, it requires the police to produce an accident responsibility identification report, which the prosecution then uses to apply to the court. Only if the court agrees with the prosecution's suggestion is the arrest warrant issued. It needs to be done step by step. Secondly, Yiding has been refusing to cooperate with the investigators and insisted on having a lawyer present to answer all questions on her behalf. Therefore, the police could only collect sufficient information unilaterally to be able to produce the accident report. By the time the identification report was issued and the court issued the arrest warrant, they found out that Yiding had already left the hospital. When Yiding was discharged, the hospital did not inform the police because the arrest warrant was not in place at that time. So the final question is, why didn't the police send someone to keep an eye on her? That's because they never thought that she could run away in such a condition, as Seth said, due to Yiding's injuries. We simply did not believe she could be discharged from the hospital in a short time, so at that time we did not think it was necessary to assign an officer to her. The police's explanation makes sense, after all. Who could have imagined that a woman who had just been in a serious car accident one moment with a breathing tube inserted, wrapped in bandages, and with a neck brace the next moment would pack up, cross the US-Canada border by car, then take a flight back to China in just over 10 hours? What about the PTSD? The PTSD from a car accident typically needs a long healing process, but it seemed like a non-issue to Ms. Yiding. I wonder if Yiding's escape has left a psychological shadow on the Washington police. If they will be more cautious if they encounter another female suspect of Chinese nationality in the future, regardless of the severity of the injuries. Since Yiding is willing to carry such a serious injury back to her country, it shows that she was very clear about the possible penalties she may face in the United States and that the same charge may result in a much lighter sentence in China. According to our research, in Washington state, vehicular homicide is a class of felony, and individuals with no criminal record could face a standard sentence of 6.5 to 8.5 years in prison plus a fine of $50,000. In China, causing death by drunk driving constitutes a traffic accident crime and could result in a sentence of less than 3 years of fixed-term imprisonment. Some people speculated that Yiding must have received guidance from someone with knowledge and experience in this area, which is why she decided to return to China in a short period of time. Others even claimed that Yiding's father is a Chinese prosecutor, though we cannot verify the authenticity of this information. In fact, even without any guidance from an authority figure, one can easily find information online regarding the sentencing standards for vehicular homicide in Washington state. This information is typically soft sell advertising written by criminal lawyers in Washington state. Lawyers usually also mention that, typically, the government does not immediately bring forth these charges after the incident, as the police and prosecutors investigate and wait to collect all relevant evidence and toxicology reports. In some jurisdictions, vehicular homicide charges may take several months to be brought to court. Therefore, it is advised for everyone to use this time wisely. In fact, the lawyer's intention is for the defendants to quickly hire them as representatives during this time. However, it is not known if this statement inspired Yiding, who was searching for a representative lawyer online at the time. Ultimately, the final outcome was that she successfully escaped back to China by taking advantage of the time gaps. Besides who brought her to Canada and who her father is, many netizens are more concerned about Yiding, who managed to escape back to China. Did she really escape without consequences? Will she still have to face repercussions for her actions regarding this matter? Public Information Officer Seth stated, "We would like to inform Miss Y that she is wanted for vehicular homicide, and we need her to come back and talk to us so the families of the victims can continue with their lives. While China and the United States do not have an extradition agreement, she should be aware that if she attempts to go to any of the countries that do, she will be immediately arrested." Does this mean that Yiding's only punishment is that she can no longer travel to countries with extradition agreements with the United States for the rest of her life? Regarding this matter, netizens have several views. First, when Yiding returned to China, was it considered fleeing before the U.S. authorities issued an arrest warrant? If I didn't know you were going to arrest me and there was no prior prohibition on me leaving the country, can't I return to my country for medical purposes? The second point is that there is no extradition agreement between China and the U.S. The focus of judicial cooperation between the two countries is on exchanging information and conducting joint investigations on cases of corruption and fraud. In reality, the U.S. may not be very interested in going after Yiding and spending resources on it. Thirdly, Yiding did not flee from the scene of the accident, and the traffic accident did not occur in China, so she will not face legal sanctions in China. With all these points, will Yiding really not face any repercussions after returning to her country? This story emphasizes the importance of driving responsibly, adhering to speed limits, and never driving under the influence of alcohol. It also underscores the necessity of accountability and integrity in the aftermath of such tragedies. We must all remember that our actions can have far-reaching impacts on the lives of others and that taking responsibility for our mistakes is crucial. Let this be a lesson to always prioritize safety and consider the potential consequences of our actions on ourselves and others. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time.